parking lot, Ellen Street, and the parking lot by the triplex. And simultaneously with Railroad Street, we'd be doing Eastern Bridge across the river and Bentley around the old log home site. The plans are fairly straightforward in terms of the amount of work is, as I've said before, it's nothing even remotely as extensive as Main Street was. We're not digging down 4 feet, redoing drainage, water lines, all that stuff is done and in good shape. Sewer lines were recently done on Bridge Street, so we're and water lines as well on Bridge Street. So the underground infrastructure is good. So we're really addressing pavement and sidewalks, and where we can address it, we're putting in trees and trying to improve the streetscape as much as we can. On Bridge Street, this is the corner of Main where Subway is. This is the new development that Benchmark is doing, Powerhouse Square with the Co-op Market. This is the new building, and this is their new parking lot where the Co-op is now. We'll do sidewalks on both sides. There used to be a Bradford pear tree up near the side entrance of Subway. There isn't. It was taken out years ago. We're replacing that with a cherry. And by the way, the trees, tree choices, we're just going to do a final review with the tree committee later this month and make sure that we're selecting trees that have been thriving, and we think we are, but we just want to check that. We'll maintain the parking spaces up here on Upper Bridge and a sidewalk here. We are not getting a sidewalk between Main and the new development. There's not enough room. We don't own the property. This is private property, so we can't get it in there. As you go down Bridge Street on the northern side, as you go past the Hammertown store and Foster's, as you approach Quickprint, it's pretty much a sea of asphalt right now. We're installing concrete sidewalks all the way through, so it looks like a pedestrian right-of-way. And there'll be a small island here and a small island here. Quickprint stays open. We need to maintain their parking. Wherever we've designed sidewalks, we're always paying attention to the driveways, parking lots, and things like that. So always taking that into account. There'll be a crosswalk, of course, to the new Co-op building here. That's where their front entrance will be. And as we continue down Bridge, the Co-op development is doing a sidewalk on their side down to the Memorial Field access driveway that they will put in here. We'll go down crossing School Street. We'll be able to replace the existing sidewalk that's there, corresponding with the driveways that are there near the old Searle School. Those are pretty much the driveways that VJ would use for the hotel development. The staircase into the ball field gets relocated slightly because of the new access way. And we'll have a crosswalk there. We're proposing on Bridge Street in several locations, if budget allows, the pedestrian activated warning systems for crosswalks. So you can push a button and a blinking light will go off telling motorists that the people are crossing there. These mid-block crossings are really difficult to pick up if you're moving along in a car, so we want to make them as visible as possible. So hopefully the one at the Co-op, the one at Memorial Field, and we're proposing one right down here by the bridge, where Riverwalk comes here and Great Barrington Land Conservancy is building the new Riverfront Trail South. We'll put a crosswalk there with a warning beacon. Turning now to School Street. Any questions on Upper Bridge?
I have a question. In terms of timing for Upper, with the powerhouse and all of their heavy machinery, do we need to be concerned about doing that in August when they're probably not done with their, where is that going to put on the brand new road and sidewalk?
Yeah, it's something that we're coordinating with, well, we've been coordinating with them for 6 or 8 months now. And we just got another email from them today about, really they're going to be bringing in heavy machinery, setting their steel, erecting the building. That's going to be a lot of heavy machinery. We don't want to pave a road when that's going on. Mm-hmm. We think that they'll be setting the curb on their sidewalk along the front of their building in mid to late September. So right along the edge of their sidewalk. And once that curb is set, we can pave right up to it.
Okay.
And so we think that, you know, obviously they wouldn't set that until they're done with the bulk of their steel. So we think we can coordinate with that. We checked with our engineer today and it should work out.
Okay.
In any case, per the special permit that Benchmark got, we're holding a fairly substantial bond, so that if the coordination does necessitate some additional work there, we'll be able to call that bond. On School Street, this is Bridge here, this is the Verizon building, School Street and Church, this is Iredale's headquarters building, the old Bryan School. School Street is basically curb to curb, repaving. The right-of-way here is actually fairly wide, and we had hoped in early designs that we could get sidewalks on both sides. The topography is a bit of a challenge here, as well as some of Verizon's heavy utility phone lines, major phone lines. We're not going to touch those. The street works fairly well as it is. On the eastern side, this is against the proposed hotel development. We'll be able to have a full-width sidewalk all the way down to Church Street. We'll protect those great trees that Jane has planted there, redo the parking area for the laundromat, which is actually within the town's right-of-way. And then the only other thing I'll mention on School Street, which is different than the plans that at 95%, now we're at 99%. The School Street was striped as a shared car and bike road. We had share roads in there. Unfortunately, that makes it difficult to park on both sides, or on either side, actually. So we're going to just make it a standard two-way road with no shared lane for a bike, so that we can get, we still have room for parking along the hotel side of the street, along the east side. People park there now. It's not striped, and we're not going to stripe it, I don't think. We should probably sign it, say it says parking is okay, and put the hours there. But we don't want to restrict the space. That's a really important parking area for the ball field, probably for the new co-op, for the farmers market. I mean, it's well utilized, and we don't want to mess that up. So School Street is fairly basic. Questions on School? Church Street. Here's Main Street. This is Lee Bank. This is the barbershop and TD Bank. This is Jane's parking lot where the farmers market is, and going down to School Street here. Fairly basic sidewalks and curbs on both sides, respecting the driveways, of course. This is where the Congregational Church parking lot is, and there's an old guardrail there. We'll keep the guardrail, pour a new sidewalk, and have a small grass space between the sidewalk and the street. Right now it's just dirt. All the grass is gone. So we'll replace that with a curb. And we can get 1 or 2 additional trees in here. This was a comment we heard last week in the public meetings. Is there any space for more trees? Yes, in fact, we think we're going to get 2 cherries in here. But again, we'll check with the tree committee. The elm tree here at the intersection with School Street is in the public right-of-way. Jane and Bob have really taken care of that elm. It's a great elm. So we've specified a lot of tree protection around it. And in fact, the excavation there is a vacuum excavation, so we don't dig up the roots. So there's a lot of protection of that old elm tree. As we go down Church, continuing towards the down towards the river, we gain a sidewalk on on the south side, this is the parking lot for the Iredale headquarters. We'll gain a sidewalk here so we can wrap right around School Street. There is a crosswalk here that the IMC employees use. That's where we're going to terminate our public sidewalk, continue the crosswalk where it is. So what that does is it brings the public to the back door of the proposed hotel, and then they can finish the work getting people there. It's a little bit tricky in here because this is floodplain. We can't put too much pavement back in. We pretty much have to respect what's there. We have another coordination meeting with Riverwalk to make sure that we make sure the rain garden there and the drainage there is all tied in properly. So that's a brief rundown of Church Street. There's some areas of sidewalk that are great that we're keeping, others we're replacing.
We had any discussion with the Searles owners about coordination of anything there?
Not in terms of construction. It doesn't seem like they're chomping at the bit for construction, but we've included their designs into ours, so we know where their driveways are. We know where their future proposed, where the permitted work is supposed to be.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Chris, sorry, excuse me. How about utilities on Church Street? They've been updated on Bridge Street mostly, but as far as Church Street, sewer and water.
I think the utilities on Church are good. The only thing that we're doing is adding a couple of catch basins to improve the drainage. All right, Sean? Just looking at Sean.
Yeah, we TV'd everything. It's in good shape.
Okay. Church. Okay. We'll look at that. Trying to find Lower Bridge. This is the side I threw into. So this is the eastern portion of Bridge Street. Here's the river is here. This is the log home site. Carpenter Green is here, and going east to East Street, which is off Ward there. We'll replace the sidewalk on the north side of the bridge where necessary, and replace the curb where necessary. This is the site where we, as you remember, we had originally hoped to bury all the overhead utility lines. And the cost came out to be pretty exorbitant. So what we're proposing instead is we've been granted the easement on the Underbridge Street site, so we can go in 10, 20 feet if necessary. We hope not to, because the site actually slopes a little bit. We'll be able to put a fairly substantial grass strip to buffer a new sidewalk from the travel from the road. A crosswalk will be here where folks can cross to the Underbridge Street site, and remember they have open space along the river. On that side there's an open space park there, so we want to get people across to the open space and on the sidewalk. Again, delivering, infrastructure to a redevelopment site. That's the whole point of the MassWorks program. Since we can't bury the lines, we'd like to try to hide them with trees, so we've selected trees that should grow underneath the lines as much as possible and maybe drown them out a little bit. A lot of people remember not too many years ago this was really heavily forested with evergreen trees, and you didn't really notice the power lines until those evergreens came down. But we're proposing a mix of deciduous, flowering, ornamental, small to medium trees in this area.
The 20 feet easement that you have is not toxic? You can work in it?
Where the current fence line is, which is just off the roadway and right about along the property line, is the edge of the CDC's site. Pretty much right inside that fence line, you start to have concerns about contaminated soils. So we need to wait for them for their remediation. The one concern we have about schedule is that they're able to close on their grants that they receive very soon, and they're able to start the remediation immediately, and then we can come in right behind them and work after the dirt is clean. we don't really have the time or the budget to work in contaminated soils. So we need to wait for them to go first.
What type of on-street parking do we have in front of the Young Walk Home site?
Nothing at this point.
Okay.
The original concept plan for them had a commercial building here with the co-op originally as an anchor tenant, and a lot of diagonal on-street parking. There was a really wide loading zone here. Since this portion of the site is undefined right now, remember they're building the affordable housing on the southern part of the site. This part of the site has no definite plan right now. What we're doing is proposing asphalt sidewalks so that when they do develop, they can punch through it fairly easily, and then be able to move things where they need to go. So we want to get the public there. We don't know exactly what they're doing, so we can't fully meet their original concept.
I think there was concern from the board then even about backing onto Bridge Street, so
Yeah.
I was wondering what we were going to do about that.
Yep, in this case, we're proposing just 2 basic travel lanes. They'll have sharrows, meaning that there'll be a shared travel bike lane. It'll be 2 15-foot wide lanes with enough room for a bike and a car to travel comfortably. And again, the southern sidewalk will be offset from the traffic. But no on-street parking in this location. Let's see, as we wrap around bridge onto Bentley, more of the same. Sidewalk continues onto Bentley, heading south on Bentley. We'll have street trees, and then this continues up here on the top. Street trees down. This is the entrance to the affordable housing site between Bentley and the river. This is the entrance to the wastewater treatment plant here. So sidewalk on this side, street trees, replacement sidewalk on the eastern side. It's kind of a narrow, broken up sidewalk now. We're going to replace that. We do have to add catch basins here on Bentley Ave. Right now, everything sheets off into the log home site, which isn't good when there's development there. And when we're proposing a curb, we'll now have to do something with the water that we're catching. So these catch basins will be installed and will tie into the log homes drainage system. Another reason why we need to wait for them to do the remediation. Questions on Bentley?
What happens if they're not ready when we're ready?
We'll have to talk about that. If it causes schedule problems, we'll have to cross that bridge. Yeah. We've thought about it. I don't want to think about it too much. But yes, we're aware that it could present problems, but we're hoping it doesn't. I'm not trying to dismiss the comment. We're well.
No, I understand.
Yeah. Okay. Good job, Ted.
There you go.
So turning to Railroad Street. Railroad and Elm. So we're able to get a lot of trees on Bridge, Bentley, and a couple on Church. We're not going to be able to get any on Railroad Street, but we are able to change the old wooden light poles with the cobra heads on them. So that's something that we'd like you to think about tonight. But going over the street plan from Main going up Railroad Street, both sidewalks get a little bit wider, particularly the northern sidewalk gets significantly wider. I think right now it's 5 feet in some places, 6 feet in others. It's tough to walk without, spilling your ice cream cone on somebody. So both sidewalks will be about 9 to 10 feet wide, making it easier for people to walk on Railroad Street. No loss of parking on Railroad Street. It'll continue to be striped parallel parking. The plans that you may have seen had us losing a parking space up here by the alleyway. We don't need to lose that space. We're going to keep it. Let's see, also on Railroad Street and also on Elm Street, we're burying conduit and pull boxes. We're burying 2 empty conduits so that we can run fiber optic, additional lighting, whatever it is we need to, whatever it is we need to run, we can do that. There'll be a pull box at every property, if not every business, so that they can punch into the basement or whatever they need to do if and when fiber is delivered. So really Railroad Street is, I'm sure a lot of people have concerns about the coordination of Railroad Street, concerns about every street, and we're taking them all very seriously. Railroad Street actually will be a fairly quick job. It's a mill and overlay, right? So that takes probably half a day to mill, another half a day to do the overlay, and you're done. So it's actually fairly quick. The sidewalks will take a little bit longer since we're setting new curbs and stuff. But businesses have access, will have access at all times. We'll coordinate deliveries. There's FedEx trucks and UPS trucks and tractor trailers on Railroad Street any hour of the day, any day of the week. So we need to accommodate that. Some early comments in design were, can we do diagonal parking on Railroad Street? Can we do it on one side? Can we do it on both sides? Can we have even wider sidewalks? The answer to all that is no. Diagonal parking doesn't gain you any space. In fact, you actually lose lane width and you don't gain any parking spaces. So we're keeping it parallel. And if you shrink the street too much, then you can't have a FedEx truck parked and cars still getting around. And so since those deliveries are really important to the businesses there, we want to maintain 10-foot sidewalks, plenty of room in the street. So as I mentioned, the Cobra Head, the wooden Cobra Head poles, which illuminate Railroad Street, there's 4 of them. We're proposing to take those down and replace them with a series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 decorative lights. We're speccing 14-foot black cast iron type poles with some sort of mounting hardware for flags and baskets, whatever you'd like, or just to make it a little bit more flexible than the decorative poles we have on Main Street. We'll have outlets in these poles.
And they would look the same as the ones on Main Street?
Well, that's a question that I think we'd like you to think about. There are all kinds of options. We'd like some guidance from you on that. We don't need to spec it for the bid plans. It's going to be chosen by owners, so we don't need a firm answer from you tonight, but we'd like some guidance. But we want to solve those problems that we saw on Main Street with the decoratives. Is you get a little light glare out of the top, not too much. They don't have outlets and they don't have a place for flags. Now, the great thing about the ones on Main Street is the town doesn't own them. The town doesn't maintain them. We can bug other people to do that, National Grid. In this case, we will own them. We will have to maintain them. So there will be a carrying cost for us on this, aside from just the power. But we think the advantages for the merchants and for the streetscape is well worth it. Setting aside the light design question, just keeping going, wrapping up the top of Railroad Street into the parking lot. Right now, it's sort of a no man's land of just asphalt. We're hoping for at least 2 trees here. We're specking cherries at this point. We looked at restriping the lot in various ways to gain parking spaces. We can't gain any parking spaces, unfortunately. We did hear a comment, though, to try to look at one of the spaces, adding a handicap space, and we're going to try to do that. The grades are steeper than you think. We're not sure if we can call it officially a handicap spot, but we're seeing what we can do. Keeping going up Railroad Street. It's all the way up Railroad and ties into Elm. We're doing the full length of Elm Court from almost the railroad line all the way down to Main, or Elm Street, I'm sorry, all the way down to Main. The sidewalks on both sides of Upper Elm, of extreme western Elm, are awfully narrow. And in some cases, they're flush with the sidewalk, and in some cases, they're very high up off the sidewalk. So we're proposing to reconstruct the sidewalks and curbs on Elm. There'll be standard 5-foot concrete sidewalks. And by the way, all the concrete we've given the engineers the concrete color, the same colored concrete that we've used on Main, which seemed to work pretty well. So these will be colored gray concrete sidewalks. Standard 5 feet. Unfortunately, what that does is it shrinks the width of Elm Street a little bit. So people currently park oftentimes half in the current sidewalk between Railroad and the entrance to the Taconic lot. This is the Berkshire record here. These parking spaces will be lost because a fire truck and tractor trailers can't make this turn. So this parking will be lost, this parking will be lost, and then you can't have cars traveling down. You just don't have enough width. And we think the sidewalks are important here. This is the pedestrian area. They should be standard. They need to accommodate wheelchairs and accessibility. There's entrances here, so we're replacing the sidewalk here with a standard 5-foot. I guess if for some reason we didn't need a sidewalk here, we might gain a little bit of space for putting parking back, but we believe we need a sidewalk to serve those properties. Here is the entrance to the Taconic lot, which I'll show you the plans for that soon. Again, we're putting fiber optic under here. We're not replacing the lights on Main Street, but we are putting fiber. Moving a few catch basins to better locations. And then currently on Elm Street, as you get down towards the Berkshire Bank and Extra Specialties going towards the end, the utility poles are out in the pavement. They're out proud of the sidewalk. So we're going to pour the sidewalk wide enough to go around those so that there's a curb between cars and the utility poles. So the sidewalk actually gets a little bit wider there, but it always has a 5-foot path. And the sidewalk on the south side against Yellow House Books gets replaced as well. And it ties right into the Main Street work. There was a question, why can't we do Elm Court, Roster Street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have enough money. We have to draw the line somewhere. So that's where maybe we can get it when we do Roster Street at a future time. Questions on Elm?
Kirby? Kirby going up Granite.
Granite Kirby.
Facing on the Kirby.
Extra sharp.
Extra sharp.
That's what I was gonna specify.
Like a good cheddar cheese. No, it's a rounded edge. It's a bullnose edge. Yep.
We have a question.
Just the chair.
Yeah.
We have a question about Railroad Street. I do.
Well, let's wait till he finishes and then we'll go with questions.
All right.
And the last bit of work I want to show you is the Taconic parking lot. By the way, I wasn't here in early '90s when that area was redone by Main Street Action and the merchants, but I did see pictures of that when we were doing the design. The engineers and contractors sent us the pictures from the time, and boy, that was a different world back there. Anyway, so we're now 25 years on from that work, and the Taconic lot has seen a great deal of use and a great deal of abuse. So we're going to replace the driveway entrance from the top of Railroad Street, all of the curbing internal to the lot, which is really falling apart pretty badly. There's really horrible drainage conditions and ponding in the lot, particularly here nearest to Ruby's in the back of Car Hardware. So we'll be addressing the drainage there and paving it so that it drains better. In terms of coordination, we're really concerned about the parking lots and maintaining parking. So we're speccing that the Taconic lot and the upper lot can't be done at the same time. One always has to be open. And when they get to this lot, they can only do half at a time. So that 50% of it is always open. This is prime parking spots, and we don't want
It's also prime delivery too.
and prime. So we have heard some comments about deliveries in this area, and incorporating those. We know of a few blackout dates, holidays, of course, the Film Festival 2019. We don't want contractors working then, and if they are, that they clean it up and make it ready. If there's other blackout dates, we'll incorporate them as we go along. We do plan to have weekly construction meetings and construction updates so that if people have a delivery coming, we can accommodate that.
There was an email from one of the merchants that was really well thought out about dates, and I assume you took all that into account.
Yeah, we've got that, and we'll take it into account. Most of it we can deal with during construction operations. So that's the gist of the improvements. Happy to answer questions, get into more details.
So you anticipate starting sometime in August?
Sometime in August.
When do you anticipate completion?
If all goes well, end of June 2019. So that's
Before the contract expires,
before the grant expires. So that's the fall of 2018 and the spring of 19. So we're hoping for great weather and a great contractor.
So if you have questions in the audience, come to the microphone. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just on the way. The milling on Railroad Street, I heard from one of the meetings, was probably about 4 hours.
Maybe a little more, but
And so if we start early, we could start early in the morning. Okay. And then the paving is also not a, the road won't be closed for all day or several days.
There'll only be a couple days when the construction will be that intrusive. But that will be well coordinated and everyone will be well aware of it.
Yeah, it'd be pretty rare.
Your name and
My name's Karen Allen. I have a store on Railroad Street. It's 8 Railroad Street. So I was just hearing little bits and pieces of that. Are you talking about Railroad Street?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my questions was just, as businesses, obviously there's going to be some days where it's going to be impossible to get into the store.
No, there'll be no days when it's impossible to get into the store.
So when you're rebuilding the sidewalk, literally right in front of our store,
You'll still
people will
be
still be able
store.
to get into the store.
Absolutely.
Will they want to get into the store? I suppose is the interesting question.
Depends what type of sale you had that
Will
day.
they even want to come onto Railroad Street?
Yes, they will.
Is the question.
Yes.
Okay.
They'll be excited to see the progress.
You think? Okay. All right. And then I guess my other question really has to do with parking, which I think we all know, is a very, very difficult problem. It sounds, listening to you, it sounds like we're only losing parking. We've already lost a lot of parking based on 47 Railroad. That whole back part of the up there at the end where Railroad changes to Elm, we've lost all that parking now, which is a bit of a disaster for all of the businesses. And now it sounds like we're going to be losing more. Is anybody looking into any sort of solutions? Because as somebody who's had a store there for 13 years, the ongoing and constant refrain is, I spent 20 minutes driving around, looking for a place to park, and I just finally gave up and left.
Chris, how many spaces are we actually losing?
I'm sorry, I don't have the count
There's about 7 on
Right.
Elm Street.
Elm.
But we just lost, what, 20?
Were they technically the town's anyway? I mean, I think everybody parked there, but I think that was a private lot.
But it filled up.
Oh, wait.
It filled up.
Yeah.
We couldn't find a place to
It
park.
was a private lot, it wasn't ours, and unfortunately we have lost that now.
So I guess I'm just asking the town, is there any thought process in place in terms of trying to find, so here we are, and I mean this is what's happening in Great Barrington. There are new restaurants opening up. There are a whole bunch of, we're making plans and allowing all of these new places to open, new places where people are going to live, new stores are opening up, and as it is, there's not enough places for people to park to come to the existing businesses. So as we're doing all this work on the sidewalks and streets and the lights and the trees, are we also thinking about, how do we get people actually into the town and find a place for them to park so they can actually enjoy all these things that are are being created because it's a real issue.
And I know you work on this.
Yeah, and so this is not actually, it will come up, but so I've been starting to count number of empty parking spaces twice a day, 3 times a day on the weekends, and where they are to start to answer the question, is there not enough parking, or is it that people who aren't from here don't know where to find it? So we will at some point have better numbers. The solutions to the parking shortage are all expensive. Which doesn't mean they can't be done. What I'm trying to figure out is how bad is it, and then so we can all make a decision, is it worth what it will cost to fix? There's the land over the railroad tracks, which is expensive. Parking structures are incredibly expensive. So so I'm working on that slowly.
Yeah.
So the answer is we're aware of the problem.
Yeah.
We don't have any answers. The cynical person will say we have a problem. The optimist will say that it's a great problem to have because we have so many people downtown, but we realize we have to address it. We just don't know how to address it right now. We haven't figured out how to address it.
No, I agree. It's a great problem to have, except it's very frustrating for people
No, and I understand
who
that.
are trying to find a place to park.
And I'm not minimizing
can't.
it. There may be some options, but right now we haven't figured out.
So I will have
And
good
if you
numbers by
live in
the
the
end of
town,
summer.
it's true, we know we can go on a weekend and
Right.
park in the bank parking
Yeah.
lot. But people who are, coming into town for the weekend, they don't know that they can do that. And so there's a lot of, you're right, there's a lot of places where there might be parking, but it doesn't look like it is actually public parking, so people feel.
And we have put out public parking maps, and I think we need to do a better job of kind of getting those out to the public. We tried different kind of campaigns, but the Chamber of Commerce has also done that as well, of noting those hidden spots, if you will, as well. And I think we just need to do a better job of kind of getting that out to the visitors more than just the general public. Because like you said, I come from Housatonic, so I never have a problem finding a spot in Great Barrington because I know where I can and can't park. But somebody that doesn't come here very regularly might not be able to find us.
Well, I mean, I know it really, really well, and
Right.
sometimes I can't find a place to park. But you're right. Most of the time, I can figure out some place. So the idea is, however Railroad Street is going to be reconstructed in terms of the street and in terms of whatever else is happening there, the sidewalks, there is going to be a protection for each individual business, so we never have to think in terms of, oof, we're going to have to close those 3 days or something.
No. Absolutely.
You'll always have access.
They maintain that on Main Street, and that will also be maintained on Railroad Street.
So even as you're there with the jackhammer
Yeah,
taking
so-
out the sidewalk, there'll be a little bridge to
Yes.
There will be, exactly.
So we can, but the question would be, will we really want to be in the
It's
store?
just
There's
all-
jackhammers
Also,
going up.
and Hillary did bring up at one of the meetings, it is something to think about. Like you said, some people may not want to come. There could be a reduction in business,
Yeah.
just to think about. But they will, if they come, they can get in.
But Railroad Street, the good part of Railroad Street, even with the sidewalks, it's much faster than what the Main Street project was. It's a smaller area.
Could you just give us like some sort of idea of, from the time you sort of set your sights on Railroad Street to the time it would be done in terms of the basic, what you need to do? Are we talking about a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Chris?
Window.
It's a couple. Railroad Street's a couple of weeks. The pavement between the curbs is actually relatively quick, so the paving is quick. But setting the curbs, setting them down in the concrete, getting them set, pouring the sidewalks, making sure the underground conduits are set and the light pole bases are set. That takes some diligence and some time. It's not months and months. I mean, we're anticipating that Railroad Street starts as soon as we can start in April. If they can do a little bit of work in the late fall season after the peak to prep for the spring, that's great.
What would that be? What would
But we're
prep
talking,
be? What would
I'm
that-
not sure
Yeah.
at this point. We're gonna, if a contractor comes in and has a great idea as to a cost-saving and time-saving method, we'll hear it. But it's gonna take probably 2 months.
2 months,
Yep.
okay.
For April and May.
Yep, and it's not all at once.
There will be some level of disturbance, but
There'll be
maybe
some
not
level.
unbearable.
One
Like, we're not
side
like
might
in
be-
there going, I can't stand this, we have to leave.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
they'll move, I think. Our experience on Main Street was they did sort of a strip of the sidewalk at a time and moved pretty quickly past, they would prep a section, pour it, bridge it, move to the next, and that worked pretty swiftly.
And will there be parking on Railroad Street during that period of time, or will the construction vehicles pretty much be taking up all the parking and people could park elsewhere and somehow manage to walk to the stores?
Well, of course, the construction vehicles are going to be there delivering concrete, pouring concrete. You know, you'll have a truck moving around. So some spaces will be lost, and there'll be flaggers if necessary to accommodate.
But Railroad Street itself won't be closed to traffic.
No.
People will be able to drive up no matter what level of work you're doing. That will always be open to traffic to drive up?
And if there's some reason we had to close it, we would do it only with plenty of advance notice. We'd try to make Elm Street available for people to get in. We'd make whatever accommodation we had to. If we have to fully close it, we'd do it with plenty of warning and only early in the morning. You know,
Okay.
we'd work with everybody to make sure it's done correctly.
There's a lot of, you'll have weekly meetings with the contractors.
Yep.
If you see a problem, you call Chris, or you call Sean, or you call someone, and that'll be flagged at the meeting.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a lot of communication that goes on.
Well, I think, jackhammers taking up the sidewalk, that's it's a little hard to do business with that going on. I mean, we'll just have to play that by ear and see how that goes.
Well,
but
we won't do is, and one of the merchants has already flagged, and we already knew this. If it's the peak time of the year, if it's Memorial Day weekend, you're not going to see Railroad Street not closed or anything like that. We understand all that.
April is, a quiet month on Railroad Street. So I mean, that's the timing is good, and we may just close into a renovation. We were talking about that today, but we'll have to see. Tell me if this is off topic, and if it is, I will let it go. And then that's, I think, all I have to ask. But what is going on with the Flying Church? and is there anything that can be done?
So I'll just say this: it's private, it's privately owned, and construction is happening there. They put the
I
roof
saw
on.
one person there the other day.
Well, they put the roof on, and they're working on it. It's privately owned. We don't have a lot to say over it, but they're making progress
Is
now.
this going the way the town hoped?
It's going slower.
Yeah, we always hope it goes
It's
fast.
Yeah, we always anticipate something a little faster, but if you've done this enough, no matter how fast someone wants to do something, it's going to be a little bit slower.
It's a very strange metaphor for the town at the moment. It looks like, what were they thinking?
We still know at the end it's going to be great for the town. So
Is it?
yes.
Promise?
No, I can't promise you anything. I'm not a fool.
Okay.
If I don't have control over it, I can't promise you.
Something is moving
Yes,
forward.
it is. Yes,
Okay.
it is.
They have their own parking lot.
Yeah, that's one good thing.
Okay, I think that's all.
Thank you.
Questions I have.
Anyone
Okay,
else have
thank you.
questions or comments? Sure, come on up to the microphone, give your name.
Hillary Rush, Church Street
Yes.
Trading Company. Just hit me on what Karen was saying, that maybe when you're doing Railroad Street, there's some way to maybe not enforce the parking rules as hard. I'm all for parking tickets.
No,
I love it. I do it. But maybe during that time.
If there's a reason to do it, I'm sure the board will agree to do it. We'll talk about it.
But
So,
it's an idea.
That's not even a problem.
All right. I never heard such a thing, so I'm just saying that maybe.
Well,
you know.
if we can, we don't enforce the parking. So it's not unprecedented.
Yeah, they do it for bids.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We don't tell the locals.
I could have told my cousin.
My name is Susan Kiesel, and I'm the manager at Karen Allen Street.
Yes.
I just have a question about Elm Street and the widening of the sidewalks there and then losing the parking spaces. That's a very low pedestrian area, so I question why we need wider parking in order to wider sidewalks and losing parking. It seems to me it would make more sense to keep the parking and just work with the space that's available, because really it's a very low pedestrian area and it seems like the parking is very valuable.
We'll talk about that. So thank you.
That's it.
Anyone else? Okay, select board.
I have one more question.
Yes.
In regards to the Bentley Ave and the 100 Bridge Street, If that coordination doesn't work out, is there a way, because I know the monies that we have for this has a limited time to use it, can we look at, is there a plan for Elm Court? Could we do Elm Court as an alternative? Because they are working on the Clinton Church, and it would be nice to have a good walking path to that being a museum. I don't know if that's...
That's a good comment.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Anyone else?
Just that I was at both of the public meetings and just now, I'm really impressed with how you've taken the comments and actually made changes to the plan and seem to be minimizing the disruptions. It's just impressive.
It's not on the stadium.
Well, right.
My one comment would be on Elm Street, we can look at it two ways. We can promote walkability, which is I think what this plan does, and hope that people will use Elm Street more often and walk down it. Or we can talk about removing that sidewalk and preserving some more parking spaces. I think that's probably the one thing. I mean, Main Street, we had a lot of topics to discuss. I think here I agree that this plan is much cleaner, to put it. But I think that is the one area where we have a decision to make. And I'm all for walkability, but I don't see a lot of people walking there, and they could walk on the one side of the street, and it would not hurt any business as far as I'm concerned.
I walk down the middle generally.
Yeah, well, there's no cars either, that's true.
I always found as an employee of a business downtown that street was one of the good, felt like I was parking away. I realized it's still in that kind of main area, but it felt, and it was like approved by but it felt as though, to me it seems like it would be good to keep those. It is a good 6, 7, 8 spots. I counted it the other day when I drove by. It's sizable.
Yeah.
Logistically, what does a 52-foot tractor trailer need for making that corner?
I'd have to pull out the turn radius. I mean, the key with the corner is the parking over here. Is it
right?
They'll hit that every time.
The only reason I ask is if there's not some sort of buffer zone right on the corners, people tend to park past where they're supposed to be.
Yeah,
and then you start getting into a lot of issues that.
Even if we could fit parking here, we would have to buffer it from the corner and pull it back. It's sort of on Main Street. A lot of the parking that we thought we had was right up against crosswalks or right up against corners, and we pulled them back so that the crosswalks were more visible. So I'd say a lot of the parking we lost on Main Street probably shouldn't have been in that location. So we're losing some of these for that reason. The primary reason, as I said, is the widened sidewalk here. There's a property here and a property here. That's the record. There are sidewalks and entrances off of this public sidewalk. So I mean, we can look at it. I'm not sure how you ask somebody to go out their sidewalk into a parked car. So we have to think about that. We can't just put the narrow sidewalk back. We're not allowed to do that. It needs to be 5 foot wide. So we can look at it. I don't think it's a bid item. I think we can look at it after we.
So we're not going to hold the project up tonight. We're going to vote on this.
I think
that's one of our concerns.
To continue to say that we can report.
No, I think that's one of our concerns. That, and I'm not saying we've made a decision, but that's one we're concerned about.
And then of course, if there's any significant changes from the tree committee, and we'll talk to historic too. They don't have any jurisdiction here, but we want to make sure that we're not doing anything too crazy. So we'll look at this. We'll discuss with those other boards, and come back and update you.
That's fine.
So can I do a motion on this, and then we'll talk streetlights?
Yes, and streetlights. From what I heard, Chris, we don't have to discuss necessarily tonight. Would you just like some idea?
Some guidance would be great. Yes.
So I'm going to make a motion that we approve the final plans for the downtown street project as presented, and authorize it being put up to bid.
Second.
Discussion.
Do we want to, in that motion, do we want to include anything that we'll have further discussion on?
I think Chris knows, I think I'm comfortable that.
It's,
I'm comfortable with,
as you said, it doesn't need to be part of the bid.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. So Ed, let's start the light discussion.
How about whatever's available that's as close to what the decorative ones on Main Street, so they match? First of all, I want to state I have not been elected for my aesthetic sense, so if there's anyone in the audience who is, who has those skills, chime in, and there's a whole list of possibilities here.
so,
But it seems to make sense to get similar to the black ones.
so think about what the base looks like. Is it a decorative base or is it just straight bulky pole? Think about the top. Is it scrolly? Is it a gooseneck?
Yeah,
Think of,
I like Ed was definitely not elected for my sense of, but I think what we want to not make this look like is that this is a project that's done in pieces. We want it to all kind of flow into itself, so it looks like Main Street, Elm Street, Railroad Street, all kind of match and flow in together, and it promotes walkability, it promotes everything, that it's not different parts of town, that it's all one corridor.
Does, sorry.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
Is,
No, that's,
is that a general consensus?
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Can we get poles that match what's on Main Street?
Yeah, those are the Williamsburg poles. Is that what you had the picture of?
Yeah, I mean, we can get pretty much anything. With when we did Maine, we had 3 options.
We had 3, right? But that was because it was a state national grid.
Are those LED? I'm sorry. Are those LED or incandescent on Main Street?
On Maine, the decoratives are metal halide. The Cobras are high pressure sodium.
Yeah, LED was not available at the time, no matter how hard we tried.
We are assuming, and maybe we shouldn't, that these would be LED, a warm color temperature of like 3,000 Kelvin or less. So they don't appear bright blue, but they're a little bit warmer. So if LED is not the way to go, please let us know.
I think
That's the way we want to go.
My personal.
Like, again, we'll own, operate, and maintain these. We don't want to be changing bulbs.
We
too
offered to
often.
become a test community and we got turned down. We wanted LEDs at the time, and I think the community did, so.
That sounded,
Are we looking at the bases and the tops as well right now, or just?
All.
Because you were saying that one of the problems with the Main Street is that they do, I don't know the right word at the moment, but the light out of the top.
In theory, those glass globes had an internal cutoff,
Right.
so that just that little rounded top lit up and looked nice. But we've heard from people who work and live on upper floors that there is a glow out, and if we have more residents on Railroad Street.
Right, that's what I'm thinking, that maybe we do as much as maybe keeping the base and the pole itself similar to what we have on Main Street. We may want to look at something that kind of casts the light downward a bit more so that it's not, because it is a little bit more residential
So again,
upstairs.
yeah, and I agree with you, but I also wonder if there is some kind of shield we can put in those. And so it looks the same, but it's shielded, the light is forced down.
So my next question is, as close to Main Street, which is not close to what was done 25 years ago in the alleyways and in the Taconic parking lot.
Right.
So if you like that, you can let us know too. we could, did I give you any of those?
you did.
I know, but pictures of what's on the Railroad Street.
So towards the last page on that top row, left side is a picture of the extreme left side is a picture of one of the alleyway lights. It's a gooseneck light with scrolling and a cutoff and sort of an acorn shaped base or globe.
Mm-hmm.
So they're similar to that, and then they're similar to Main Street.
No, I think we should be
Just
similar
to
to Main
confuse
Street,
you.
and I think those kind of look fine the way they are.
Is that something we can get the prices on 2 different options, the scrolly and the plain? I mean, that might be a difference as well.
Mm-hmm.
and then I think we also want the ability to plug stuff in up top and to hang banners. That sounds like all of them, that's an option.
Yes, that's an option that will include all of them.
So have we given you any direction?
I've heard Main Street, I haven't heard, it depends on cost. I heard Kate say cost, should we just look at sort of both a Main Street type and a Taconic parking lot type? Let's call them that. And let you know.
Sure.
That's
If there's an extreme difference, yeah.
I mean, I'm still gonna lean towards the Main Street, because I think the Taconic parking lot is shielded, so that if it looks different, it's not gonna be odd, but my taste may not be that great.
Are we, oh, I think you're correct. Do we have a consensus on black poles, do we know? Black as opposed to brushed aluminum and everything else?
Well, I assume that they're gonna be the same, if we're talking about the same color as Main Street, they'd be the black.
It'd be black.
Yeah. And this is 5 hours less than we talked about on Main Street, and most people didn't think we got that right, but.
Yes. Okay, I'm
Okay,
okay.
okay. Okay. Any other questions on the downtown street improvements project? Eileen?
Has the state formally approved using the grant money for this
Yes,
Yes?
in writing?
yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
And I'll turn this part over to you, because
Now.
you're, yes.